I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. I'm walking and talking with.
Gonna go ahead and get going. We've given it a moment. We will end with I'm Black and I'm Proud, but I decided to do Stayed on Freedom for right now because I know our panelists are going to bring it and enlighten us. So I want to start us off by thanking everyone for joining on today. We have the honor and the privilege to have King County now with us. And this is our kickoff of our Juneteenth celebration for the month, and we have multiple events happening within the Seattle colleges as well as within the community. You'll hear about those, but today is our kickoff as we know the importance of not only celebrating Juneteenth just on June 19th, but the importance of educating and learning what that means for us throughout the year and throughout this month. So when we get going, we're going to do what we have done and see as not only a requirement for us to acknowledge the land that we're on, but then most importantly, talk about the actions in which you do beyond just acknowledging the land. So I'll read the land acknowledgement before we begin, and it reads as follows. On behalf of North Seattle College, we acknowledge that we occupy the traditional ancestral lands of the Cochalish people, the Wamish, Muckleshoot, Tulalip, Suquamish, and Squamish, who continuing to honor and bring heritage and bring to light their heritage and their customs. Without them, we would not have access to this learning or dialogue. We ask that you take this opportunity to thank the original caretakers of this land, air, and water who are still here. We encourage all of you as participants to consider your responsibility to the people of this land, both here and elsewhere, to stand in solidarity with our Native and Indigenous First Nations people and their sovereignty, their cultural heritage, and their lives. We also recognize all the Indigenous slaves, all the people, Black and Brown, who were forced to do unpaid, underpaid labor to construct this country, this city, and this state. It is our collective responsibility to critically interrogate these histories, repair the harm, and honor and protect and sustain the land. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. As we know, it is important to go beyond just an acknowledgement, but then what do we do as a people here within the colleges? One way is to actually pay rent to the Duwamish, and we have that. Also, we have that link being put in the chat. Other ways are being a part of our Clear Sky pathways that we have here within the Seattle colleges as well. Multiple ways to get involved, but most importantly, please just don't read land acknowledgments. Actually do something outside of that too as well. We have a few guidelines that will guide us through today's conversation. It is important that we follow all of our district policies and procedures to create this safe and kind space that we want to have here. If any participants are felt as if they're in a space that is unsafe, we ask that you reach out to one of the, if you look at your chat box, you will see there's many co-hosts and hosts. Please reach out to them personally and we can assist you moving forward. We value everyone's opinion, but we also value the importance of the space that we are creating today. And it is truly a Black space, and that is what we are going to believe in and trust in. So if you allow yourself to learn and grow, then you shall do that. and we ask that you have an open mind and open heart to it. Please don't take up space unless you can certainly identify and understand what the space is first. So ask yourself first, is this the right time to take up space? And if the answer is no and you can't answer that, then it's probably not a right time to take up the space. So please conduct yourself accordingly, and we thank you for that. Shall we have Zoom bombing? We will have alternate Zoom and ready to go for backup, because the show will go on, because we have a dynamic panel and we built this partnership now going into a year, and we've been waiting for this event. So with that being said, there's the guidelines. And I want to briefly just state the importance of Juneteenth. Not only are we not celebrating it just, but then also on June 19th. What I also think about when I think about being from Texas, from also Oklahoma, I also think about the Tulsa massacre too as well. I think about all the things that we had to go through as a people just the freedoms that many are able to have, that we're still fighting for until. So I ask that not only we take time to reflect what has happened and what we're celebrating, but then for many of us, including it, also is hurt, pain that goes along with the celebration, because the fight has still not ended and we're still in it. And we hope that you all can be more than allies and become accomplices and help us to do that within our social justice system. And I know beloved Trayana is going to tell us more about how they're doing that within King County. So thank you. A holding space from an action space. I'm going to lean on my beloved brother, Jamie, who I had the honor to really do this work with, as he represents what truly is a space and a place where you come up and use your positionality and your, social identity as one to be the voice for a community. So when we think about a holding space is really understand what can we hold for the other person in our community, although we may not identify what's going on within that community. How can we create space to where we hold that first, and then it builds off of a beloved community, which we know our elder, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talks about what a beloved community is, and he talks about it lacks no limitations of understanding. It really acknowledges conflict and pain in order to talk about difficult situations. It also speaks truth in love, because that is important. But then also it builds a sense of active listening and also active action. So what do you do after you hear about the things that have been going on around society, in particular in Seattle? Now that you hear about it, now that you're knowledgeable about it, you talk about defunding the police, but what are you going to do? What is your role? And that is what the holding space does. And now the action space is just as important. Brother, can I turn it now over to you, beloved Jamie?
Thanks so much, DeAndre. Thanks to all of you who are here. I'm so grateful to be in this space and to be in community with you all. I want to give a little bit of background about sort of how this event represents lots of threads coming together and building of partnerships. So some of you may have been in the 2 summer action spaces that Michaela and DeAndre and I did. And you may have heard me talk a little bit about living on Capitol Hill within the police occupation, and then within CHOP, and reflecting a little bit about how that changed me. And much of the change that I personally experienced happened within community spaces put together by King County Equity Now. I was really lucky to meet Trayana this summer in the CHOP, and we started talking right off the bat about, wow, what kind of potential for a partnership could we have between King County Equity Now, this amazing organizing and activism and brilliance that's on the ground, and the Seattle colleges and North Seattle College. So we hatched that idea about a year ago. We were really lucky. DeAndre and I were able to have a conversation with Treyana this past summer at a King County Equity Now event. And then in the fall, a class that Cristobal Borges and I were teaching, we partnered with our Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Office with DeAndre to bring Treyana in and have Treyana speak to our students. Treyana brought a little piece of that brilliance into the classroom, and we opened it up to the college, and it was just incredible to see that kind of transformational energy in the classroom. Before Treyana came to visit us, we had students working on a final capstone project where they were reflecting on what the summer of protest means to them. And so many of our students were saying, we don't know if we have anything to say about this. And then after Treyana came and worked with us, right afterwards, our students were flooding in to our office hours, talking to us after class saying, we have so much to say. And we now feel like we're part of this. And we want to be part of this and this better future that we're seeing that's possible. Fast forward to winter quarter, we had our all-campus book read. Really have to give props to Caroline Pugh and Deepa Bandaru and Anna Villar for organizing an amazing district-wide book read that focuses on Patrisse Khan-Culler's book, When They Call You a Terrorist, Black Lives Matter memoir. And they kind of brought the book read to the next level in the sense that we had discussions in the winter, but then in the spring, we transitioned into now what actions can we take based on what we've learned in this book. And so here we are today in this action space, this partnership that continues to build between North Seattle College, the Seattle Colleges, and King County Equity Now. We have this dream team panel of leaders and organizers and elders that have come here to share their brilliance and their wisdom with us and help us get involved and find opportunities to do so. I'm going to paste into the chat here a link to a resource sheet so that while you're listening to the panelists, you can also see the organizations that they're part of, and you can click on the hyperlinks and be able to learn more and sign up for their emails and find ways to volunteer. There's also information about some upcoming events there, including the King County Equity Now Juneteenth event. Just so honored and grateful to be here with you all. And with that said, I'm going to pass it off to Treyana and our brilliant panelists. We'll hear from them, and then after that, we'll transition into a Q&A. Thanks so much.
Wow, Jamie and DeAndre, thank you guys so much for really having the foresight to want to hear from community leaders. And, you know, as I wear multiple hats out here in community, whether it's, you know, King County Equity Now or Africatown or Converge Media, people experience me in a wide variety of ways. And so I really wanted the panel to be able to reflect what that looks like when we talk about really coming from a relational standpoint and relational basis. So today, I'm so excited that all of these amazing panelists took time out of their busy schedules, because I know they have lots going on, to really share with you all a little bit about what they do and their own personal story that got them to where they are today, and how that work is continuing. Many folks really experience so much of, you know, not just Black organizing and Black liberation through the protest movement in Seattle, but they really experienced, you know, that connection that so many Black organizations have to one another and what that looks like. And so with that being said, you guys can see Miss Elishaba Johnson on the screen now, Sean Good coming on the screen. Thank you guys for spotlighting all the panelists. We have Miss Nana Kabibi joining us. Elishaba is with Wana Wari. Sean Good is with Choose 180. Miss Nana Kabibi is with New Black Arts West Theater. We have Omari Salisbury with Converge Media. We have Amijah, I guess you guys are doing the spotlights. There we go. We have Miss Amijah Smith with Colorful Communities LLC, also with King County Equity Now. And we have Mr. Willard Jimerson with Zero Youth Detention. So we have a really solid panel, and I want to get into it because, again, we want to make sure that we have room for all of y'all's questions, and so that we can get everything in. So with that, I really want to open it up with my esteemed elder in community, who has really been such a great mentor to me as I was a young person, and even now in my adulthood. And I want to open it up to, I love you so much, Miss Nana Kabibi. Please, Miss Nana Kabibi of New Black Arts West Theater.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you too, baby girl. You know I do. I'm so honored to be here. I'm going to be celebrating my 73rd birthday in October. And so I've been here a little while. I've got some wisdom to throw to, what do the kids say, spit at you. But I'm honored to be here, and I'm the executive director of the oldest African-American theater company in the Pacific Northwest, New Black Arts West Theater. And I have a lot to share. I'm looking forward to this day. Thank you.
All right, Miss Nana. No, you can go ahead and give them, you have about 7 to 10 minutes or so to really just kind of speak about your work. And I think, you know, as I was really thinking about who to pull together for this panel, because there's so many amazing people, honestly, in our community. Nana Kabibi represents not only just elder wisdom, but also really staying plugged in to what's happening on the ground. And for any of you who have seen our social media, just this past Monday, we held Black Wall Street at the 100th year anniversary of Tulsa. We took over Jackson Street, flooded it with businesses, and Nana Kabibi was able to pull together an amazing ensemble cast that brought together the new Black Arts West Theater cast and the old and original Black Arts West Theater crew. And so you have really stayed connected and plugged in. You got about 7 minutes to just talk about how your work from the beginnings of New Black have really led you to where you are today, and how you stay connected with all of this movement that is happening in generations of the future.
Okay, and now I know I have spotlights on me. Okay, well, I was born and raised in Seattle, Washington, raised in the Yesler Terrace, and the arts have always been a way for me to empower my community. It's always been a way to, I was the one that taught all the boys how to dance, because contrary to what you think, gentlemen, we don't want you to bend us so far back that it breaks our back. And on and on, but I've always been an aid to my community. New Black Arts West Theater was founded in '92 by me because I knew that the arts had to be brought back to the community. It was the only thing that we had to learn our history. I didn't know half of my history until I was a member of the original Black Arts West Theater. I didn't know life. Life was, you know, kind of held from a lot of the kids that were going to Baby Gadsden and Washington. I mean, you know, they didn't really help us prepare ourselves for the future. They did what they were supposed to do. They teach our ABCs and math and, you know, that kind of thing. But we didn't really get a chance to find out about the great things that we had done. And I'm talking about Black people had done on this planet. We had no idea. We were just, you know, I didn't know that I was going to be speaking about me right now and who I was. Unfortunately, I thought I was just going to be here to be a token, so to speak, of an elder in the community. And now that I know that the messages that I want to get to you, my community, and the youth, is to know that you are loved. We are here for you as elders in the community. We want to be part of the struggle to make things right for you, the people in our community that want to see the progress of us kumbayaing through life, really becoming one, really being concerned about each other. As you said earlier, you gave honor to the land that we're on, and I would like to amen that as well. We have to start loving and living with each other, doing what we can for each other. It was such an honor yesterday to be one of the voices for the celebration of commemorating and giving voice to the massacre that happened back when. But that wasn't the only place that they keep making it a solidary place, in my opinion, by saying Tulsa, Oklahoma was where, you know, we were bombed and burned out and killed because, and this is true, because another people were jealous of what we had. It really wasn't for the reasons that are being told, like somebody whistled at somebody or Tillman, you know, someone whistling at somebody and the white dominant society being angry at it. It was really, we're being attacked and we're being demonized. And I'm very, very upset with that. It wasn't just Tulsa, it was Slocum, it was Greenwood, it was Parker Street. There are hundreds, literally hundreds of Black communities that were destroyed because of jealousy. Instead of the love that we should be celebrating with each other, I, in my lifetime, have lived always trying to defend and hopefully be an aid and a support to a community that has been underserved, that has been overlooked. And that's my fight now. That's my mantra now, is to be an aid to those that need the aid that we have to give, the love that we have to give, the directions that we have to take in order for us on this planet to live in love. When I was young, I always used to ask my mom, why is it that there's wars? Why is it that people are being put into slavery, that there's a Holocaust, that there's a Ma'afa? Why isn't love the dominant thing on this planet? I asked my mom that. She said, well, baby, as long as you're living with love, as long as you know that your purpose is to be a servant, to help those that need you, and let what is be what is, because it's all going to be taken care of by and by. So that's what my purpose has always been with the Black Arts West Theater and the original Black Arts West Theater, which I was also a member of, was to bring our community together, bring people together, to be an aid to the people that we serve and love. So I'm hoping that what I'm saying is kind of touching on what I'm supposed to be talking about, because I wasn't really given a heads up on what my presentation should be. But I have to come from my heart whenever I'm asked to speak about where I am and what I want in life. And that's for us to live and love together, period.
Oh, Nana, always on point. And that's really what this is about. As you can tell, I mean, we're talking about all of these events that are so now integral into our understandings, as DeAndre opened us up and talked about how, even just Jamie and I getting connected and almost what Jamie kind of represents is like, well, what can I do? What can I do right now to help push the needle, to help move this transformative change about? And I think all of us on this panel really exude that every day in our lives. And you have done it phenomenally by being there for community, by being there for the next generation, by, cementing yourself in the arts and opening up the spaces for young creatives like myself to really find my way. And you continue to do that. And so thank you, because your message was, it always is and was today on point. Thank you so much, Nana Kabibi. Next up, I really want to introduce a brother who's working so hard out there to really change the lives of so many young folks, change their trajectories, show them a different pathway. Mr. Sean Good of Choose 180 has been working for a very long time, building relationships throughout community and our like criminal injustice system, whatever you guys want to call it, to make sure that folks that are find themselves kind of in the middle of it all can really find a way out through a community approach. Mr. Sean Good of Choose 180.
Thank you, Troy. I appreciate the space and the opportunity to be on this panel with people who I love, respect, and absolutely adore. I adore Elishaba out of that category, who I also love and respect, but that's my sister. I'm so excited to see you today. So I steward an organization called Choose 180 as their executive director. And we work to transform systems of injustice while supporting the young people who are disproportionately impacted by those systems. And we do that by building intentional relationships with people who we would otherwise have acrimonious interactions with, folks like prosecutors, law enforcement, court administrators, and the like, in effort to transform the way that they function, so that way they no longer cause the harm that necessitates the existence of our organization. Because it's our conviction that our work, although meaningful, shouldn't need to exist. And that if we're not actively designing a world where we are no longer a part of it and functioning in the way that we are today, then we're benefiting from the suffering of young people. And we inadvertently end up perpetuating the very same harm that we're hoping to dispel. Now, my journey in this work began when I was very young, 6 years old. At the age of 6, it was my first engagement with the criminal legal system. My brother, who at the age of 13 was incarcerated for a poor choice he made. The earliest memory I have of him is visiting him when I was 6. And I remember walking into this facility and going up to the guard desk, and the guard being excited to see me because on the wall behind me was an article written about my brother. And the article wasn't about what he did to end up in this space, but it was what he was doing since he had been inside. And he had left to go speak at schools, and he was inspiring young people, and one of the schools wrote a piece about him. And it wasn't lost on me at 6 years old that my brother could do so much good for the world, but because of one poor choice he made as a 13-year-old boy, he'd be locked up in this space until he was a 21-year-old man. Now, fortunately for me, when I was 13, he came back on the scene, and he saw by the clothes I was wearing and the interactions I was having in the neighborhood that something was going on in a way that my mother couldn't perceive. And he became for me what our organization is for hundreds of young people every year. Somebody who's credible, with lived experience, who was willing to see me as a possibility to be developed and not a problem to be solved. And as a result, invested in the development of me, poured into me, breathed life into me, and helped set me on a trajectory where I can serve and steward community in the manner that I do today. Now, I didn't begin the work of Choose 180. That work began by the leadership of Doug Wheeler, who also led in community in a variety of different capacities, launched Zion Preparatory Academy that served our community for a very long time. And in 2011, Doug Wheeler was engaged by Dan Satterberg, the prosecutor-elect, and Dan Satterberg essentially said, we are failing our Black and brown children. And as Doug tells it, he says that it was because Dan said our children that he leaned in. And together they co-created what at that time was called the 180 program. At that time, Doug then brought in his son, Dominique Davis, who many of you know, who champions community passageways. And Dominique Davis, in addition to Terrell Dorsey, who leads an organization called Unleash the Brilliance, would steward this cause between 2011 and 2016 and lead the programmatic aspects in a way that created the platform that I've had the privilege to build from over the course of these last 4.5 years. Now, soon after I took over stewardship of the cause, the city attorney, Pete Holmes, reached out and he said that you've been doing effective work for 12 to 17-year-olds. Would it work for 18 to 24-year-olds as well? To which I replied, of course it will. I mean, we didn't know, but what we do know is nothing magical happens at the age of 18. I have a 19-year-old son, and if I had more than 10 minutes, I could talk at great length about nothing magical happening at the age of 18. But we began to serve 12 to 24-year-olds through this thing called a pre-filing diversion program, which essentially means this. When young people live in neighborhoods that are overly policed, their behavior is criminalized. When that behavior is criminalized, typically what happens is they're referred to the prosecutor, then the prosecutor then refers them to adjudicates the case in the court. And because of our relationship with the prosecutor, when law enforcement criminalizes the adolescent behavior of our children, they get referred to our organization and receive community instead of a criminal conviction. They participate in our programming where they receive grace instead of guilt. And 90% of the young people who engage with us, the 12 to 24-year-olds in this practice, don't return to the criminal legal system within 12 months of participating in our work. Now, I would love to say it's because we have some sort of special sauce, and I think we have some special dynamics. We hire people who are reflective of the community we serve. We employ people with lived experience. Our board and our staff team is absolutely reflective of who we are as a collective us. But more importantly, young people don't need to be criminalized in order for behavior change to occur. Young people simply need to be engaged by folks who see them as a possibility and not a problem, and are willing to invest in the possibility that they are. I mean, that's what Trey was alluding to a moment ago when she was talking about being invested in by our elder and being shown that the arts is a pathway of expression that can lead and transform somebody's life, and then in the future create a platform to serve and honor the collective us from. Because of the impact of that work, school districts were interested, and we realized that young people, particularly our Black and brown children, are being disproportionately suspended and expelled. And so we began to partner with the local school district and South King County Highline School District to offer an alternative to suspensions and expulsions, because the majority of the suspensions and expulsions were for what the equivalent is of insubordinate behavior. And we know that like being teenager is synonymous with being insubordinate. So if it's our Black and brown children who are being insubordinate, it's because, and being suspended, there's a direct correlation to the fact that on average, they're aged 3 to 4 years older than what they are. And that means you can have a 13-year-old child being treated like an adult based on the implicit bias of the teacher who's not acknowledging the filter that they're viewing their world through. And so we begin to serve in that capacity, and the work has grown from there. We also we have an advocacy program where we're training young people up to learn how to leverage their voice for transformation and change in their own communities. We offer a summer program where young people are learning how to be entrepreneurs and launching their own business models and ideas throughout the course of the summer. We serve inside of some of these facilities where young people are living incarcerated to build bridges to relationships when they exit. And we support young people who have been impacted by gun violence to make sure that they are engaged in a healing process so they're less likely to be harmed or cause harm to others in the future. Most recently, we began to serve nationally by teaching other communities how to do what it is that we've been able to do here in the greater Seattle area. At the core of our cause, we believe 2 things with terrific strength. Number 1, that grace is the greatest motivator for behavior change, and that grace can allow somebody to see themselves as who they can be, whereas guilt limits them to seeing themselves as something that they've done. And most importantly, every young person is a possibility to be developed and not a problem to be solved.
Wow, snaps all around, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I just want to really encourage all of you as we have these speakers come up and these panelists come up. Thank you so much for sharing the resource form that you guys created and for sharing these opportunities to volunteer with these organizations. As I'm always saying, you know, seeing yourself as a part of the solution, as all these panelists really have. Thank you so much, Sean Good, brother. All the work you guys are doing is phenomenal. Up next, I want to introduce a woman I have the pleasure and privilege of working with Monday through Friday and sometimes on the weekends because our work does not stop. It's very true. Miss Imijah Smith wears many hats just like myself. She can come into a space as a concerned parent, a CEO or president of Colorful Communities, LLC, a representative of the village, a community queen, King County Equity Now. I mean, I tell you, I don't even know all the hats Imijah wears because there are that many. Imijah has done tremendous work with regard to a lot of what Sean was just talking about in terms of being one of those educational pillars in our community to ensure that we're holding the education system accountable. And now she brings all of her brilliance and social capital and amazing ideas to King County Equity Now, but continues work with Colorful Communities as well. I'd like to introduce you guys to Miss Imijah Smith.
Thank you, Trey, for that amazing introduction. I want to say thank you to all the panelists, and much love and respect and honor to you, Ms. Kabibi, just for being you. I thought that your words were on point and powerful and necessary. Thank you so much. And thank you. My name's Imijah Smith. Please call me Imijah. I'm a community queen, born and raised in Seattle, raised in the heart of Central District Seattle. I don't say that to make a stake that, that area is better than another, but I do say that to say that that is the historical Black community. So for those who are privileged to be raised there before all the gentrification, and you still want to claim that that's still home. So I call that out to say that's still home in my heart. I was raised in this community that was safe, was raised in a community that loved on me and let me know who I was, and brought in a sense of the liberation of not only loving myself, but loving my people. And being a product of this area, once the crack and things came into the community in the 80s and that attack on the Black community, I seen things really transform. So I became really dedicated around that time to say, I want to advocate, believing at the time that really education is our outlet, this is our access opportunity, but also wanted to be really clear from watching my peers and a lot of devastation they went through, but also watching family members really being devastated by addiction, and households being separated, to say that I also want to do reform with all the systems. But at the time, as a high schooler, I said education and criminal justice reform. I am a mother. That's the greatest and most, the most beautiful leadership role that I could ever play, the greatest gift that I've been blessed to be a mother and a grandmother. So I do share that. And as Trey did share, when you see me, you see me. There are a lot of hats and policy tables that I sit at, but I try to bring all of me to all of those spaces, and not try to be boxed into any of those, just be boxed into Imijah, because for the most part, you're gonna get what you get. And I don't really care to put a mask on, because the situation in our community for Black people is real, and I think it's dire, and our justice is deserved. So I like to say that I'm unapologetically pro-Black. I used to say unapologetically Black, but unapologetically pro-Black, as I sit in the Black box, as I sit in this box as a Black woman and as a Black mother. So thank you, Trey, for this opportunity to speak to you all today. What I heard you say earlier that I wanted to bring into this space is around relationship. The importance of relationship. I think relationship is the social currency for Black, Indigenous, and Brown folks, because culturally that's how we navigate through the world, is through our relationships, through our borrowing, what have you, not objects, not the car, not those things in the US system. It's cool to have, I love nice things too, but I really honor and value how I left my loved one or my friend or my relative, because you don't know what circle you're gonna come back around and you're gonna need somebody. And I think that's what has carried us in our movement, in our advocacy, and our resilience. So I gotta bring this back to Ms. Kabibi's, because I've seen you in the community all my life. So that carries so much more value to me than if I ever just happened to work with you. I've seen the real work happening, and I want you to know that you model just being present and being in community is model for me to do the same. I think I have a sense of social currency, because you're gonna see me at the local grocery store, you're gonna see me at the community center. I have children, you're gonna see me out, because I'm learning with all of us. This organizing work happens with all of us. I definitely want to credit a lot of my learning from the People's Institute of Survival and Beyond, where we learn about undoing institutionalized racism and understand systems. Because with a lot of the great work that organizations are doing out here, too often they problematize our families and they problematize our children. Thinking about, how can I correct you? What do I need to make better so that you can supposedly be great along this false American dream that's set up, that's not set up for our Black community to have. And also, we didn't set the standard of what that success looks like. And we need to reevaluate what our American dream looks like for us. And also in a lot of times these organizations with the best of intentions, across the board organizations, we have to be willing to foster in the liberating our children and what it means to be liberated Black people. What does it mean to have liberated education? What does it mean to have liberated healthcare? What does it mean to have liberated justice reform? Because again, if we keep falling to the standards that was not set by us, and in my opinion, are not quality or high enough of a standard for me, then we are selling ourselves short. We will always just keep upholding a system that continues to keep sending our children down the river, the prison pipeline, to dropouts and unemployment. So those things is when we center that around who we are, why we're here, and what our work is, then we get more clear about how we move in our advocacy and organizing. I say this because I'm the first person in my family to go to college. Everybody knew I was probably going to do it. I was a smart one. That's what I was all, oh, Pastor Majah, go ahead and do your thing. But having such a circle of support from my family and community, when I made it across that Montlake Bridge, that circle of support wasn't there. That environment wasn't there to pour into me, although there were some people there who did pour into me and support me. And what I started to see is as we move up this ladder, sometimes of what we think the American dream is, we lose a sense of ourself and a sense of our liberation and a sense of our commitment to bring it back. Go get it, and you bring it back to community. So I was told multiple times, you're going to get this degree and you're going to leave the community. How oftentimes, if it's necessary for your survival, to go ahead and leave the community, but you should never leave the community. All of us should be going out from this education, learning how the system works, make it work for us, and bring it back to our children, and bring it back to our elders, and bring it back to our ecosystem. And that's how we push forward. That's the biggest thing that I want to leave here. And for those who poured into me along the way, it was a few professors. I'm not going to knock people who didn't, but it was majority the everyday people in my community who smiled at me, because they wasn't smiling at me on the UW campus. They were questioning my intelligence when I know that I'm intelligent. So, or questioning, you know, they can't even talk. How are you going to talk to me about equity and racism? You can't even have the conversation. I was having the most ridiculous conversations with these professors who supposedly are the experts. You're not an expert on my community. You actually are lacking in the history on this campus. But I have to come in there and learn the work and also educate you. So I say all this to just say we have a lot of work to do, and we can definitely do it. I love the by and by that Ms. Kibibi shared. A lot of my work and my influence, I guess you would say, or my name is in the education system, particularly Seattle public schools, because walking into those systems as a parent, you get to see firsthand how those things play out, whether it's your child or somebody else's child. And if you look at the data, it's not really serving us well. So I just wanted to be that parent who really got involved, whether it was volunteered, asked a lot of questions, get on the policy tables, you know, participate in PTSAs, not to ever go and just align myself with those systems. So I just want to pour out to you, Black folks, we can't align with that system because that system's not set up for us. But we learn it, and we know how we do. We season it up, we get innovative. You know, we're genius in our brilliance, and we bring some life to that so that it works for our community as well as others. That's what I do when I think about my advocacy. Along the way, also making the relationships. I think I definitely have a warrior spirit, and I think I come kind of fierce on some people because I'm not sugarcoating and playing the game about my people, and definitely not about my children. So that could be a turnoff for some folks who think they want to control you. You need to stay in your place. You can't hold this energy. My community, you can't hold this energy. This has to be free. This has to speak. This has to come out. But I've been blessed with the opportunity to do it in a way that people could receive the message. Instead of being offended, if they're offended because of the overall system, the jealousy overall. They're not offended by me. You can only respect what I'm saying. And I'm saying to you all to speak your truth, because they gotta respect it because it's real and they understand our conditions as well. And to not be afraid and to link up and align yourself with others in these school systems, because I can tell you right now, our children appreciate it. They appreciate just seeing us there and smiling at them, if that is it. Just like I appreciate Ms. Kibibi being in the community and just smiling. If that is it, I appreciate it. And that's me right now, because you're the elder and you're modeling for me to be the elder in the community, right? When I'm 70, when I'm 100 years old. So I don't know, I just think relationships are key. We need to center our relationships. We need to honor them. If they've gotten broken in any way, have a conversation and try to heal those, because that's all we got. You know, I don't know the rapper or the music, but that's all we got. We just got us, and we know how to make it work. It's in our DNA, and let's do that work. Thank you. Thanks, Trey.
Woo! You guys are all giving me chills, all of y'all. I'm just so elated to have y'all in space together. And, you know, I got a little emotional, Imaja, when you talk about my Nana Kabibi, you know, really showing up and being that elder. Because we say it in community all the time, just because, you know, you're older doesn't mean you're an elder. And I think that that's so important. And, you know, Miss Nana Kabibi truly exemplifies that by staying plugged in, by saying, all right, baby, what's going on? She'll call me, hey, late. Hey, what's going on? How do I stay involved? Tell me what you need me to do. Now, that's what I'm talking about. It goes beyond, she goes above and beyond. So thank you so much, Imaja, for rooting us in that relational perspective. It is so important. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. I'm excited, y'all, because my next panelist that is coming up, I see this brother work harder than most people I know. I have witnessed him be so dedicated to media and what it means to be a real journalist with a community-rooted approach. You know, to create Converge Media years ago, to see himself as, hey, this is a need for me to be out here making sure these stories are getting told from a very specific perspective of somebody who has lived experience, grown up in the Central District, went to Garfield High, traveled the world, and as Imaja said, did all of that and brought that knowledge back right here to Seattle to share all of that brilliance with us. As we have seen, for those of you who don't know, Converge Media is definitely on the scene. And, you know, this brother's also got a birthday coming up tomorrow. So I'm glad, Omari, you were able to fit us in your schedule. Mr. Omari Salisbury at Converge Media.
There we go. First of all, good afternoon. I want to thank everybody for this opportunity, and definitely want to take an opportunity to acknowledge our elder on the scene here, Nana Kabibi. Man, I'll take a few minutes here to kind of tell everybody about myself, and then you know what our role is here in media, but not only Black media. Proud to say I'm from like I said, the Central District of Seattle. Spent quite a few years right there on 24th, right across the street from Wanawari. And then, you know, I'm on 29th and Jackson. I'm a very proud Garfield Bulldog. You know, from there, I went to a HBCU, Elizabeth City State down in North Carolina, and got into radio there, WRVS 89.9. And won't take you too long down this road, but to sum it up, I spent about 17 years working in the international media space. So I've been fortunate enough. I've been about 60 countries around the world, 25 of them on the continent of Africa, 7 different countries on the continent that I lived in: Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, South Africa, Nigeria, a few other places. And primarily what I did there was, I mean, the range of things from being an on-air personality to ultimately when I left, I was working with different governments and launching TV and radio stations there, because all across the continent, they're trying to liberalize you know, media. So they need more radio and TV stations. So launched a lot of TV stations across East Africa and Tanzania, like I said, Rwanda, Kenya, Botswana, then also on satellite deals, put content up on satellites. Used to go over to Beijing and to South Africa, work with the big satellite providers there. And my final stint was in the Middle East. I lived in Dubai for 4 years, and we launched a TV station there. It was the very first Black station for that part of the world, and serving 43 countries, transmitting out of Abu Dhabi. My return back to Seattle was very intentional as far as media things, is that I wanted to come back to my community and literally take this world of experience that I was fortunate enough to accumulate and bring it back to my neighborhood. But also intentional in that, you know, they say sometimes it's you gotta be able to do what's hard, and video is what's hard. And it's also the space. We always talk about space and holding space and the doors that are open, is that returning home and going into our community. We have these two legacy giants in the Black community in Seattle, in radio, KRIZ and KZIZ. And of course in print, you have the Medium and you have the Facts. And then on online, you know, South Seattle Emerald and Rainier Avenue Radio. Nobody was in the video lane though. Video is difficult, by the way. It's not an easy task. And we thought though that, you know, one of the things that I saw living, you know, in an international space was that people, no matter what country you're in, and yes, they consume the big products coming out of Hollywood and, you know, international sports and things like that, but people really resonated to hyper local content. And whether that was news content or entertainment content, people want to see themselves. And that's just the way that content consumption is changing, right? People want to be able to see a representation of themselves, news that impacts them and everything else. So it came back to Seattle. And actually last month, 5 years, Converge is 5 years old, with the goal of launching Converge. And really, we weren't supposed to be the stars of it. We're supposed to be behind the scenes. Converge was launched to highlight Northwest content creators. So, you know, people who make short films, photographers, podcasters, writers, and things like that. And you'll find other people's works up there on the Converge platform. And you know, that's kind of where we're at. You know, when Trey Holiday and I launched the Morning Update show 15 months ago, back in March of last year, because we knew that you know, the information about COVID at the time, it was, like I said, like trying to drink out of a fire hydrant for everybody, and especially for people in our community and for our elders. And we knew that if we were not intentional about creating a daily platform to give our elders the best information and people in our community the best information, then, you know, it's going to be all bad. And so we launched the Morning Update show just like that. We're going to go live tomorrow, and assembled everybody. And, you know, the Morning Update show, a year and change later, is definitely one of the most influential shows in Seattle. We're not the biggest, and we don't have the largest audience. You know, I like to say Converge is the little engine that could, but we're definitely influential, right? And so we influence quite a few things in the city, and with that comes a lot of responsibility. Looks like, you know, I put the timer on here so I got a few minutes here, my last few minutes in this introduction. What I do want to say is this: the importance of media and Black media and everything else. What we do see right here, and I'll be honest with you guys, and Trey Holiday are back at it every day. I'm like, man, I can't wait to not do this show anymore, because we only were going to do it for 2 months, cover COVID and move on. But now Converge is in a position where Black media in our city hasn't been in decades, if not ever. You know, I mean, just the other day, we get somebody where somebody calls out the mayor. You know what I'm saying? I called the mayor's office right after the show. The mayor's appearing at 6 p.m. You know, we want to talk to a council member. Council member shows up. We want to talk to these people. They're there. And so I'm in this position that I really don't want to be in, but I know what's important for our community, because we've never had this much direct access to hold elected officials accountable, right? And so I don't know how much longer we'll be doing it, but for a while, we'll be out here tomorrow. Don't worry. But the thing is, as well, it is real interesting right here on this platform, because, you know, my brother Sean Good and Amijah, but especially Sean, he's been on quite a few times. And I'll tell Sean, we'll be talking beforehand, afterhand. I'll be like, you know what? Me and Sean, and I've had other people, Nikita Oliver, we'll joke all the time. Like, I don't necessarily agree with everybody's approach on everything. But it's all right, because it's not my job to agree or disagree. It's my job to be able to give voice to this credible messengers here, right? Because at the end of the day, we all want the same result: great communities, safe neighborhoods. We want economic empowerment and everything else. And for far too long, I think that people who were darlings of the media got all the spotlight and were able to. Seattle's the kind of city, let's be honest, that when the white majority is convinced of something, then, you know, I mean, they hop on the bandwagon. They're like, hey, you know, this is all good. And a lot of times, if we can't get our different voices out there, sometimes Seattle hops on the bandwagon of people who don't necessarily represent the best for our community. And so Converge, we're here to give voice to a Choose 180. Even, you know, no matter, irregardless, we're here to give voice to a King County Equity Now. We're here to give voice to a Black Brilliance. We're also here to hold a council member Morales accountable, just like we're here to hold a council member Durkin accountable. And today we heard that the task force money's getting ready to come out, and it's our job to also hold community accountable. Okay, you guys are getting the bread. Where's it going? But, you know, at the end of the day, our job is one, to make sure that we give a voice to these people who are out there doing important work in our community. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I'm the biggest honor to be on this panel right here is that all of these people are very credible. You know, they're all working in their own space, but they're all very credible people. You know, and this is why, in trying to tell you, I don't like doing these, but I was on here today because of all of these credible messengers that are here. And the other thing that I was going to say, and is that another role of course, of our Black media here is to uplift and uphold our Black brilliance and greatness and everything else that we see. And it's really good. If you go to the Converge Instagram at WW Converge, you'll see these videos that Trayana was talking about from Black Wall Street. You'll see this Black woman entrepreneur pop up that was over the week. Those are our most viewed things. That's why I want to get away from like this politics stuff and go back to like just content that uplifts our people, because Black people love to see amazing things about themselves. So I would say it's an honor, it's a privilege to be here. And for you guys that are watching this Zoom that might be unaware of some of your panelists, take it from the media guy when I tell you that you got a very credible, outstanding panel that's joining here today.
Thank you so much, Omari. Kudos to you, and like he said, we are co-hosts of the Morning Update Show Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. We are on air. Just to, I mean, rain, sleet, or snow, you guys will find us. And honestly, I'm so glad that you were here, Omari, to really represent for Black media, right? You've been very consistent in the approach to be sure that no matter if you agree or disagree, the platform is there for people to be able to express what they are doing in community and how important that is for the audience to be able to understand. One of the things I love so much about the platform is that I'm educating myself. We're educating the community. We're learning so many different things about how these processes work. And honestly, about how so much of it has been unbeknownst to many folks in the Black community. So thank you, Omari, for everything you do. I'm so glad. You're right. I know you don't like panels normally, but I'm so glad you said yes and you could bring your brilliance to this panel today. Up next is somebody that I probably go the furthest back with, honestly, that I've known since we were in elementary school. And, you know, honestly, the work of Wana Wari is another shining example of what can be done when you put ingenuity and innovation, mix it with creativity to sustain ownership in the Central District. And I'm so glad, Elishaba, that you are part of the Wana Wari team. You are such an amazing addition to what Inye Wakoma and the Wakoma family really kind of started and launched. And so I'm so glad you could be here with us. You're an amazing artist in your own right. And now you're doing so much great work with Wana Wari. You guys, Miss Elishaba Johnson.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm like, Sean's my friend. And thank you, Miss Kabibi and Imaja and Omari, all people I look up to. Yeah, I'm like, Trey, I think it goes back to second grade. So I'm gonna share my screen. I am that person that has a PowerPoint. I can't speak it extemporaneously like everybody else on the panel. I have to have images. So I just honor how I learn and how I work and just do it the way that works best for me. So we can, there we go. So yeah, Wanawari means our home in the Southern Calabar language of Nigeria, which is where Inye's father was from. This home, so this is us four founders, Inye Wakoma, Jill Friedberg, myself, and Rachel Kessler. We are all artists, and we decided to rent Inye's grandmother's home or family home as a way of stabilizing her finances and then giving the house back to the Black community as an arts and cultural center. So this is Frank and Goldine Green, Inye's grandparents. They bought their first house. I always go back to the first slide. You can kind of see it right here. That's still in the family. And then the Wanawari house is the second house they bought. Frank had a dream of owning every house on the block. At one time, they owned 6 houses, and it was like 5 in the Central District, 1 in Mount Baker, but you know what I mean. And over the time, due to complex pressures, the family now has 3. So lots of Black families are experiencing displacement for a lot of different reasons. Won't get into all that today, but we'll get into how we're working to fight against it. Our mission, Wanawari, creates space for Black ownership, possibility, and belonging through art, historic preservation, and connection. Let's get this slide. So our main tenet of what we do is that we're an arts gallery. We show 4 to 5 Black artists that are local, regional, and national. We're really interested in what diasporic conversation of what Blackness is through arts and culture. But then we also have music, dance, theater, games, community, you name it. The space is just a vessel for our community to come in and create. And then one of our second tenets is historic preservation. So Jill Friedberg worked with Inye Wakoma and Rachel Kessler and many other folks on a project called the Shelf Life Community Stories Project, where they gathered over 70 oral histories from Black folks and some API folks, I think too, that had history in the neighborhood. We believe that any place can be a living archive. So when you come to Wanawari, we haven't had our phones out since COVID, but you can hear oral histories on phones. There's slideshows, different ways to access that. And then I was gonna show, we launched an oral history program about a month ago. So selected 6 people who are getting trained in the best ethics and best practices of gathering oral stories. And then we will be resourcing them to go out into the community and gather more of these stories that we know are so important, like Ms. Kibibi and Imajah and Trey were talking about. Another tenet of our work is belonging, that piece that everybody was kind of talking about today about growing up in the Central District and their memories and how safe of a space it was. We believe that our house and the compound that it's on, one was always this, functioned as this way, due to the way that Frank and Goldine Green envisioned their homes. But we also really doing this work realized that Black folks have always been doing this. We did our organizing in homes. We had our celebrations in homes. And so we just feel like we're already continuing that Black vernacular. So here you see some images. We have a community garden in our backyard that's a partnership with Seattle Public Library and Yes Farms. We have celebrations, slideshows, you name it. Things for kids, food pop-ups. And then our organizing work is the Central Area Cultural Ecosystem for the 21st Century. Inye in particular leads this work. It really looks at land use policy. So when we opened, we knew that you could have a business in a house, but what we found out very quickly was that you can't have it in a single family house. You can't have it where anybody knows that you're operating. You have to be completely in secret, kind of like almost like you're a bookkeeper in a spare bedroom. But when we were talking to the city, they said if you were 1 block over, you wouldn't have to worry about your zoning, right? Well, 1 block over, we know that we have many different apartments coming up from Lake Union Partners, all these different things. And so we've been really thinking all this whole time about how our city has created land use policy that is pro-developer and anti-homeowner. And when we think of homeowners, people sometimes usually think of white folks, but the people who are most at danger of displacement are Black homeowners. So we have been looking at land use policy and looking at how we can use that in the favor of Black homeowners. So in particular, like how can you scale up a model like Wanawari? So if we as artists in the community pay the rent so this house can stay in community, what are ways that we can help other Black homeowners? Either maybe they rent out a spare room or have an ADU in their backyard or many other different possibilities, right? And we're really looking at that through CASE. So very soon, they've been working hard for the last 2 years developing a survey, and that will be coming out where they'll be interviewing Black homeowners about their needs, and we'll be using that information to advocate. We have relationships with people like the King County's tax assessor office, looking at property tax and things like that. And then I'm gonna skip a lot of this. This is our virtual programming staff. And I'm just gonna go to here where right now we're working to buy the home. We've raised our down payment, but we're still looking for a few more funds. If you do want to donate to wanawari.org, you can go to our donate button. We're going to buy the house, keep it in the family, and then have a long-term lease with the organization, and then use this as a model to help other Black families keep their homes. So I'll leave it with this quote by Eula Scott Bino that we love. The best way for us to fight back is to party. That's a form of revolution when they tell us we're not welcome anymore. Thank you. I think I took all my time.
Oh, Elizabeth, that was amazing. And I'm glad that you had the slideshow. Look, Wanawari, you know what I mean? You guys are so rooted in art. That was amazing. And honestly, the work that, you and the team over there are really doing is groundbreaking work. When we talk about, not digging too deep into these gentrification data metrics, but it is very, very stark when you look at these numbers, and we need innovative approaches, just like you guys are doing. The Case 21 project, is at the heart of my love. If I could be working with that team, I would be. I need an extra body or something, but I love what you guys are doing. And again, one of my friends, y'all, since second grade, love you to death, and so glad.
I love you.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to give props to Trey and King County Equity Now, Teme, everybody who, everybody who made last weekend happen. That's why you guys are doing it, and seeing I couldn't make it, but the pictures gave me so much joy. So yeah.
Absolutely. Shout out to Omari and the Converge team for being out there and capturing, I don't know how long we did the electric slide, but it was a long time. So, yes, absolutely. That is such a part of this work. And so thank you so much for being with us today. I love you. Up next, you guys, is a brother who, honestly, I just seen him hit the scene so seriously, bringing his lived experience to bear for these young people, finding solutions. As Sean Good was saying earlier, that when you come from an approach of, really seeing the possibilities in these young folks who find themselves in the middle of, life choices that sometimes can get them on a trajectory that won't actually expedite their possibilities and showcase them in a way that allows them to flourish as young men and as adults later on in life. Willard Jimerson has really, for me, been so sincere and dedicated to the work of young people. He's had his camera off because in the meantime, he's been working with some lawyers on a whole other thing, again, being here for young people consistently. So I just want to open up the floor to another brother from our community, Mr. Willard Jimerson.
There we go. There we go. Was trying to unmute. Thank you, Trayana, once again for, providing this opportunity, giving us this platform. Are you able to hear me real good? Okay, yeah, just providing us with this opportunity on such a unique platform. I'm honored. I'm honored as well just to be on this panel with so many, people that I consider heavy hitters, those who have inspired me. Who have given me life in ways that I needed it, especially in times that it wasn't easy to have, and I definitely have to give those folks their flowers as they're here today. And one of those folks is definitely Queen Imija. Imija, she's always been a strong supporter, an avid supporter, always pouring life into me, and I've been knowing her for 40 years now, not to age her, but that is it. The only reason I'm telling you that because I'm 40 and happen to be my older cousin, and so, and she's been here, she's been a lifesaver, she's given me a lot of hope in hopeless times. And I'll speak to that, and then I'll bring us up to speed on some other aspects. And I know you wanted just to share a little bit about our lives, our circumstances, and also what we're doing today and how folks can probably, connect and align themselves up with some of the things that we're doing, and vice versa, how we can also do some of those connections as well. I don't want to start out kind of like highlighting or emphasizing, what could be seen as a tragedy. But the reality is our history and our connection to this country has not been the best. We came, not because we volunteered for most of us. And our continued, relationship with this society, with this country has not been the best. And so with that, in February 23rd of 1981, that's when I was born. My mother, she was herself, she was incarcerated. She was in Purdy, right here in the state of Washington. She was serving, I believe at that time, like a 3, 4, 5 year sentence. And she had me when she was incarcerated. And from the story she had told me, like, we almost didn't make it. I was breached. I'm sure she was stressed, going through whatever she was going through. I was pretty much like Tupac. I was my mom's first cellmate, and the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck, and it was a very stressful, birth. And I'm glad that I was able to make it through. And also my mother and my father was able to come and grab me and bless me with his name. And so therefore I'm his junior. And so with that, like I said, it's not tragedy, but that's just the reality of my circumstances and my situation. And I was blessed and fortunate enough to be raised by my paternal grandparents. Both sides of my family was always involved in my life. They only lived literally blocks away from each other. And growing up in the Central District, they had the same zip code. So my maternal grandparents and my paternal grandparents literally were 15 seconds apart. And so I had that umbrella aspect of family, but my primary address was 2514 East Chester Way with the Jefferson residence location. And that's where I was raised. And I was blessed to have, my paternal grandparents give me what they gave me. But also we had what I feel like is our first, our 9/11, our personal 9/11 as far as Black folks in this society. I remember back in 9/11, right after that, there was a thing called anthrax that was being shipped and, sent to people through the mail. And it was a chemical that would cause a lot of damage just upon just being exposed to it. And I say that, 9/11, as far as Black folks, we had our first catastrophe when, the systems that were developed were crashing to our pillars, our towers, which is the Black man and the Black woman in our community. And we've seen the ripple effects take place with that. And so my community was impacted, it was devastated. And then we had anthrax handed to us, but it was in the form of crack cocaine, and it decimated our communities. And as you was just highlighting Black Wall Street, when you have momentum moving us in a different way, people who are in position of authority and power do not like to see those things happening. So there'll be other different implementations that are placed into our community. And so with that, it created a lot of fragments in our society. I fell into those fragmented aspects of our society. I fell into those cracks and crevices. Early on, I became a part of a subculture, subgroup, a power group, if you want to call it for the lack of a better term. And I identified as that. And because of that, it exposed me to the streets. And my long-term exposure or overtime exposure, I won't say long-term exposure, but exposure to the streets led me into different circumstances where by the time I reached the age of 13, literally, I'll say I was about 2 weeks after turning 13, I found myself incarcerated, facing a serious crime where I was tried as an adult. And I was one of the youngest in the state of Washington to be tried as an adult in the year of 1994. This is during the super predator theory was launched on our society, and it was practiced on Black and brown communities. And I was one of those experiments. And so at the age of 13, I was given a 23-year sentence, 8 months and 4 days. And out of that sentence, I served 20 and a half years. So from 13 to 33, I did the Washington State, Department of Corrections tour. I was at Walla Walla, I was in Column Bay, I was in Monroe, I was in McNeil. And that's the reason why I want to highlight, folks like Imijah, who does this work more than just in community. She finds herself reaching in the places where most people are afraid to go to, or they, you're out of sight, you're out of mind, and she reached back and she will always write me letters, send me books, send me love, send me encouragement, send me hope. And I'll tell you the reality is she sent me something I don't realize why she sent it, and I don't even know if she even remember why she sent it, but I remember being at Walla Walla, and I probably was like 19 at the time. She sent me her curriculum when she was going to the University of Washington, right? I literally can cry because I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. And you can only imagine when you're in prison and you're 13 and you feel like you have to be in there for the rest of your life and you feel like this is it because society has shown to me what they feel about me. And they said that I'm not redeemable. They said that I'm not, worthy to have an investment made into. So you begin to center yourself around that consistent negative messaging that you receive from the schools, from your community, and what I mean by your community as far as looking at how the parole and the conditions your community is in. Your community is totally different when you go, 2 miles, north or whatever, and you look at the University of Washington or the U District area, or you look at the Leschi neighborhood area, you're surrounded by these prestigious communities, and you look at your community, it's a consistent reminder of how society views you. And so I ascribe to that. I was there. I was just telling somebody yesterday, I'm like, it's crazy how I shifted. I can literally feel that same emotion, that same mental space that I was in when I was 17 and I was 15, and I was in IMU, which is Intensive Management Unit, and I was doing what they call a program. And that's when you're on IMS status, which is intensive management status. And I spent like, at this time, I think it was like 17 months in the hole. And I remember pacing the cell and like, this is it. There was nothing beyond this. There was nothing beyond these walls. And my cousin sent me her curriculum, and I didn't know what I was going to do in my life. And I remember that she was going to school at the University of Washington, and she was studying to be a public administration, get her degree or master's in public administration. And I just remember saying, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my degree in public administration. Because I didn't know, she gave me a course, she gave me something that gave me life, that gave me hope in a dark space. And so I just want to be able to say, thank you, Umaija, for doing that, because it helped to set the ground for what I'm doing today. And so even while I was on the inside, I began to shake some of these conditional aspects off of me. I had brothers who were doing life sentences, who had been incarcerated for quite some time, who seen value in me. Right? They seen value in me because they said, okay, there's a young brother who's going to be here for quite some time. And this is also an opportunity for them to push the reset button, because they also made some mistakes in society and they wanted to make up for some of those mistakes. And so because of that, they poured life into me, and we was able to transform the incarceration environment. And so when they pulled out the Pell Grants in 1995 and we wasn't able to get post-secondary educational opportunities, we leaned on each other's strengths. So we became autodidact. I mean, we became self-taught, learning Arabic, Kiswahili, learning how to do calculus, all the things that they was telling us that we could not do in the traditional educational systems when they say we're not interested, we don't qualify, we don't have the wherewithal, we don't have the intellectual capacity or prowess to be able to pick up these things. These elements were introduced to me by other brothers like Snoop, who's doing 167 years, who was my calculus teacher, right? Noel, who helped me to get through my English. And I was operating at a college level when I was 15 and 17 years of age. And these guys poured things into me who was able to change the culture inside of prison. And one thing I said when I got a glimpse of hope to be able to come home, I said, I have to live not only for myself, but also for those who come from the similar environments in which I was coming from. But I knew if we can change the prison environment with our mental prowess and our genius, we can also bring our collective genius together on the outside and be able to make those similar changes to our communities. And so I was gun-ho, and I was married to that. And I told myself, if I can be in here as a janitor, cleaning a lieutenant's office or scrubbing their toilets, that means when I get back into my community, when I see trash on the street, that I need to stop and pick it up. If there's a bathroom at the school that needs to be cleaned, then I should be volunteering to do that. If there's a life that needs to be saved and pull out the cracks and crevices out of the central district, out of the south end, and whatever parts, then I need to be standing up and doing that. How can I convince these young folks to do exactly what I've done, to put down the mentality that says it's okay to have a Tech 9 and not a technique? And so these are the things that we've been working on. And so we understand that the real transformation comes from the inside, not just from reading a book, not just from saying I want to get involved, but also knowing that real change is an inside job. You know, you have to be able to tear down some of these other different things that doesn't allow you to be able to move forward. And so being able to do that, I came home, I ran into a couple little hiccups, nothing on the legal side, but the hiccup that I ran into was when I was in work release. My counselor at that time said, "You're here to go to work." So I wanted to continue on with my education because I knew that that was going to provide structure, that was going to give me an opportunity to be able to move forward in life. And I ended up going on a tour to Bellevue College with a few previously incarcerated persons who were working with post-prison education program. I had connected with them when I was on the inside. And when I went up there, because I was just green to everything, I met a counselor, Kathy Colasardo, who I love till this very day. She seen something in me and she signed me up for my very first quarter at Bellevue College that was starting literally the next month, which was like September, and I went there in August. And I was scared because I was only supposed to go to the campus as a site visit and then enroll in January because I was going to be released from work release in February. But I came back and I immediately knocked on my counselor's door and said, "Hey, I couldn't stop the ball from rolling." I got enrolled, and she said, "You know what? I knew this was going to happen. You know, you're here. This is work release, not work education. You know, and I don't know how you're going to manage this, but I'm going to give you an opportunity and see if you can make it work." So I went to work and also went to school, and I was able to hold that down for about maybe 2 years in that same capacity. And so once I was done with Bellevue College, I graduated from there. I ended up working at the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, coming in as just a reentry navigator, learning what I need to learn in that environment and really just soaking it all up. Like I was the first there, I'll be one of the last to leave. Like there was times, and you can go back and you can ask Michelle Merriweather, who's the CEO now, or Augustine Sita. There were times that they would literally leave the office and come back in the morning. And I'm like, "Are you still here?" Because I'm literally going through the files and making sure everything is pristine, everything is succinct, everything is where it needs to be. And yes, I did not leave the office. Yes, I have been there. Like, "You need to leave," right? Because we was getting ready, preparing for an audit. But I had this mentality, even when I was on the inside, I said, if I come home and the only job that's available is to work at McDonald's, I said, well, the person who's going to be working next to me is going to be upset because I'm going to work them under the table. Right. And that's just the mentality that I came on with. And I kept pursuing that. And one of the things I wanted to do, I realized that at one particular time I represented the streets, but when I elevated in my consciousness, I realized that I represent the people in them now. So I wanted to make sure that when I came home, I gave them something, you know, not just in rhetoric, but also an example. So, and I'm glad that I came and worked right in my community. Like literally, I worked at Papa Murphy's on 23rd and Jackson. And then once then I worked in the community, you know, at the Urban League, right off of 14th and Yesler. And then I had an opportunity to spearhead a youth and development program and going the Federal Way, working at the Multi-Service Center and started the Positive Outcomes program as the lead coordinator. And I had two phenomenal brothers who were working in conjunction with me. And I need to raise Andre Bullard's name up because that brother's no longer here with us, and he lost his life really just giving his heart to this work. And also to my guy Evan Cook, who does a lot of work in Federal Way. And then I came back to the Urban League and I had an opportunity with the Credible Messengers, which is a national initiative that really highlights the lived experience of folks who have been impacted judicially. And so we put leadership in those particular places and we raise that leadership. We help them out with technical assistance. We raise them up in the reentry supports. And then I had an opportunity to elevate my status in the Urban League and became the director over the youth and education department. And then from there, now I'm with the Zero Youth Detention, and I've been working with them, and I've been working on a regional, robust, comprehensive public health safety aspect. And what I'm talking about in that regard is gun violence, how we are able to reduce gun violence. And we understand gun violence, we see it we see violence as a disease. It spreads from person to person. So how can we do the same thing we did with COVID-19 to enact the resources and the expertise and specialization for these young folks to get rid of their Glock 19s, right? And that's the things that we've been working on. So one of the things I said is that we need to bring the experts inside the operation room. And questions that I pose to folks is, does your mother love you? You know, I ask people that, I'm like, do your mother love you when I talk about this particular strategy? And obviously folks say, yes, my mother loves me. And I said, well, how much does your mother love you to make you know that your mother loves you? And they can't quantify what that looks like. And so the next question I ask, if something were to happen to you and your mother probably had to give up something to keep you alive and it may have sacrificed her life, would she be willing to do so? And most of the time folks would say, yes, I'm sure my mother would do that. And the reality is this, just because your mother loves you does not mean she's qualified to be in the operation room when you need specific support. We need the experts in the operation room. Your mother has a great deal of responsibility and she has a position in the role of your healing, but that means she needs to be in the visiting room. And so when it comes down to gun violence reduction, we want to make sure those who have been similarly situated are in the operation room doing the work to make sure that we can get the reasons of young folks for having guns in their lives out of their hands and put something in exchange different into their lives. So we have a regional comprehensive approach called the Regional Peacekeepers Collective that has several different organizations. Since I'm working for King County, we have multi-jurisdictions that we're working with: Seattle, Berrien, Tukwila, Renton, Auburn, Federal Way, and Kent. So we're in all those different localities. We have different organizations, just as well as their chiefs of police, their mayors, their city councils, who are supporting this effort, because we know that young folks are deserving to live. If they have life, they're deserving to live. And that's what we want to make sure that we're doing. And kudos also to Sean Good, who's also a part of that initiative as well. So I just want to let you guys know that's some of the work that we're doing. June 4th, which is tomorrow, that is National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Yesterday should have been Hydea Pendleton's 24th birthday. Her life was cut short when she was 15, 9 years ago. On the south side of Chicago, she was struck by a stray bullet right after 2 weeks after marching in the second inaugural parade for Barack Obama. And so her friends got together and they said we wanted to honor Hydea and do something to honor her and also other folks who have fallen victim to gun violence. And so June 4th, just 4 years ago, became the National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And so they wear orange because Hydea was wearing an orange shirt the day that she was tragically killed, but also an orange shirt represents don't shoot me. So if you're out hunting in the woods and I'm looking for a deer, I'll make sure that I have an orange shirt on to identify that I'm not to be a target. So tomorrow we all will be adorning orange shirts to recognize National Gun Violence Awareness Day, as well as this is a launch for the Regional Peacekeepers Collective, and we want to honor those who have fallen, victims to this particular tragedy to do our work. And we want to let you folks know that we're in community, we're in space. We will be in Skyway from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. At the grocery outlet parking lot. Then we'll move over to Kent from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. and we'll be at the Kent City Hall because we know that gentrification has pushed many of our Black and brown populations out southward. So we want to make sure that the resources are meeting that population as well for those who are living in a new central district that they refer to as the Kentro district or something like that, So we just want to make sure that our populations and our folks who are constantly being overlooked when it comes to the resources that some people galvanize based off of their lived experiences, but they're too afraid to touch them. So they'll go work with a population that looks similar, but who are not really similarly situated. We're going to really go into the murk and the mire and be those 49ers on Seahawk land, not the 49ers that we talk about playing football, but the 49ers who are unafraid to put their lives at risk by going into those deep, dark recesses of the earth to pull out those most valuable gems that we like to adorn in terms of diamonds and stuff, because we see value in all of the young folks in our communities, even their families. And so that's the work that we're doing in a nutshell. So if folks want to know how to connect and how to link, please come see us tomorrow and put on an orange shirt. don't shoot. We want to recognize those who have fallen victims to gun violence. And we also will be handing out lock boxes to the first 100 who shows up to run down the reduction of gun violence.
Wow, thank you so much, Willard. I mean, when we talk about all of these panelists, I mean, Willard, you're just really showcasing what it looks like to say, no, my lived experience is going to be beneficial to this present generation, to future generations. I'm sure all of y'all out there in the audience are just as touched as I am by you sharing your story and being so connected and committed to this work. Thank you so much, brother. It's a pleasure to be working alongside you in community.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys, I'm really excited because obviously all of these panelists, I know we have about 30 minutes left and there's a question that comes from the book. I want to make sure we get to it. But as a wrap up, I just want to say that I am inspired by all of these panelists and all of their love and dedication. I can see so many of you in the comments talking about the love that everybody is really coming from this perspective of, I have to do these things for my community. I have to be connected in these ways. And it's such a basis of love. You're absolutely right. And, when I think about the work of just even a King County Equity Now, it's so much of it is about uplifting so much of this amazing type of work. And also, how do we take all of that, the learned experiences and the lessons into new policy and legislation, into advocacy campaigns, and connecting community members, everyday folks, to see themselves as a part of the solution by clicking on some buttons and emailing their council member or emailing their state representative, so that we have this collective voice that then is moving through the city and county level and into the state level down in Olympia to really showcase Washington as a leader in the nation, just as we just did in this last legislative session with all those bills, that police package that we were able to pass, and being the first in the nation to have such a newfound look on what it really takes to have some form of police reform, police accountability, and to really reduce the opportunities for police brutality and abuse of force. I think that, we here in Washington, we have so much more work to do, which is very clear here with all the panelists in the wide variety of ways that they are pouring into that work. It is all collective, work. And as Elijah said, when we think about, relationships and repairing relationships and being very connected to the people who are the most impacted by the work we do, that's really what so many of all of these panelists here today have really shown you all. And I hope that you guys out there in the audience are able to take away some opportunities to see yourself as a part of the solution by bringing your brilliance into the volunteering, by donating to some of these amazing organizations, by connecting yourself with some of this work. Because honestly, and I tell Jamie this all the time when we're talking, is that we don't have a great America until we all are pouring into what a great America can be, what a great America should look like, and truly creating the American dream. So thank you guys for that. I know, Jamie, I'm going to pass it back to you. There's a question that comes from the book, and we want to open it up for any questions you guys may have of the panelists. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks you all so much. I've got our resource sheet showing here, and I'm gonna get our PowerPoint back up, get to our current slide, and pass it over to Deepa. Deepa, can you hear me?
Let's flow like water, Jamie, and take it over.
All right. So yeah, we're going to transition into our community Q&A, and just want to read this statement prepared by Deepa about a brave space. So we envision our conversation today as a brave space. In a brave space, we acknowledge that members of our community are at different points on a journey of learning and growing. A primary assumption of a brave space is that everyone speaks with a goal of seeking greater knowledge and understanding. While we won't always agree, we can expect everyone to pursue controversy with civility and respect. We understand that in the process of critical dialogue, members of our community might say things that result in unintentional offense and hurt feelings for others. We always aim to hold ourselves accountable and repair harm. So in that spirit, we're going to move on to our question from Patrisse Khan-Cullors, When They Call You a Terrorist, a story of Black Lives Matter. We've taken a passage from the book, and then we have a question that's based off of that. So I'm going to read the passage first. Quote, "We are a forgotten generation," and this is from Patrisse Khan-Cullors. "Worse, we are a generation that has been written off. We've been written off by the drug war. We've been written off by the war on gangs. We've been written off by mass incarceration and criminalization. We've been written off by broken public schools, and we've been written off by gentrification that keeps us out of the very neighborhoods we've helped build. We actually don't give an F about shiny, polished candidates. We care about justice. We care about bold leaders and action. We care about human rights and common decency. So there is no other place for me to be but here, where I can continue to help bring that into existence." So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and read the question that we have that builds off of that quote. Deepa, I see you now. Are you ready to read this question? You want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I wasn't able to unmute myself, but yeah, thanks. And I just wanted to thank everybody. I feel so blessed to be in the space, you know, having facilitated the book read on our campus in the winter. There are just so many themes that come up in this book that you have just made so local for us. And so, I mean, that has, you know, it's each of your lives is a reflection of some of these themes in a different way, and to see the resilience in your community, to see what everybody is doing is just incredible. And the love. We had a question initially about love, but I think that, you know, that just came out so well with everything you said. So really what we wanted to ask you all about was the generational solidarity that seems to have really come out, I think, of the King County Equity Now Coalition. So in this quote, you know, Patrisse Cullors is talking about herself as part of this, this younger generation, right? And in what ways are younger Black voices shaping and sharpening the direction of local activism? And how are younger activists' concerns different from the concerns of previous generations? And how are younger and older generations of Black activists in Seattle working together for racial and social justice?
Wow, that's a great question, Deepa. And I think we can all maybe take a little stab at that. I will start with Ms. Nana Kabibi. You know, you may have some serious thoughts on this, as you've stayed very connected to the work of some of these younger organizations. Do you see your unmute button? Yeah, no. There we go.
I unmuted now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, good. Now, what was your question again? I was so frantically trying to get it unmuted. I knew I was up. So what was the statement? What do you want?
Yeah, basically they really, the question was really around how the younger generation is really shaping up around sharpening some of the solutions that may have started in previous generations.
What's happening now? And I tell the younger generation this all the time. A lot of what you know now, or what you're exposed to now, the history that you're learning now, my generation, we weren't privy to our contributions and how great we were as a people. I mean, we were convinced that the whole, there's a line in a poem I said that I have written, And it says, I know you've been dehumanized by a system full of all sorts of lies with false accusations and out humiliation fed to the world with determination to keep us down, face down, on and into the ground. And that came to me because the history that we are being exposed to now about who we are and like the great things that we've done for this world is now out in the light. We now know of our greatness. We now know how important we have been to civilization, period. And what I'm seeing is now that the information is being given to us finally, our children are the recipients of it. They know now that a system was set up against our growth. A system has been we've been waged war on from a system that, is tried and true. It works well. It is, how you conquer a people and a country and a mind and a soul. These are the tools you need to do that. And when I was young, I didn't know about that. So what I'm so proud of is that your generation, Trayana, has gotten the knowledge. Now you can do the things that are needed to be done for the upliftment of our people. So did I answer that question? I hope I did.
Oh, that's great. That is
Okay.
absolutely great. And
Okay.
I want to come to you, Sean, because it also, when we talk about how younger and older generations are working together for racial and social justice, I mean, some of that is really happening in your work, and maybe you could speak to that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And Elder, thank you so much for your wisdom in this space. Young people have always brought forth the prophetic voice of change. The disciples in the Bible were teenagers and were instigators of great change. In fact, we find it to be generally true that young people carry the prophetic voice and the prophetic vision because they haven't been so inundated with the trauma of this world that they have yet to adopt a short-sightedness that often limits those of us who are older from seeing in the lens of possibility. We saw it with the No New Youth Jail movement, which was largely led by young folks. And here we are some years later, Dow Constantine saying that he's going to close down the youth jail. And if we would have simply listened to the voices of young people, we wouldn't have built the multi-million-dollar monstrosity and would have been able to repurpose those dollars in a way that would have honored those collective voices. And we've seen it in this time of social unrest that's followed the murder of George Floyd. Now, the opportunity that exists where we often see some of the greatest tension is that where prophetic voices, when they land upon the ears of those that have forgotten how to see into the realm of possibility, they often feel quieted, they feel muted, they feel as though there's no reason to continue to bring our voice to those spaces because those people don't want to hear us. Which is where the opportunity of the elder comes in to add that wisdom that can only be acquired by traversing the difficulties that life brings you and the years that come along with that, with the prophetic voice of young people. And then we're able to orchestrate plans and execute in a way that nothing can possibly stop us. And I believe in this moment and in this time, there's a leveling out and a balancing that is necessary. And the work of so many organizers is beginning to create and curate spaces for that to actually be accomplished. I don't know that we'll ever get to a place in community where the tension isn't held, where folks are saying the older generation just doesn't get it, they just don't understand. And the older generation is saying, those young folks don't understand, we did that already, it didn't work. I don't know that that place exists, but I do believe there's a place that exists where there's synergy in between those two spaces, where we can both honor the wisdom of our elders and the prophetic vision of our young people and believe in some common ground together and lean into that conviction and create new possibilities for our community. But it does require a unique blend of both in order for us truly to live into a space that is yet to exist.
Yes, and yes. Thank you so much, Brother Sean. Very true. And Omari, you know, I just kind of want to throw this to you because coming from a media perspective now, you know, Converge has some younger interns, right? And when we think about the innovation of storytelling and again of being connected to community and keeping those stories alive, how do you see that kind of connection happening in the media space?
Hi, Trey. I appreciate the question. If I could just spin it here a little bit, you know, people know me as being an aspiring local historian here as well. And I would just, I want to say this, we got students here and everything else. We should be ashamed of ourselves in this city that our elders have grown old and the same burdens in that they carried are still carried now by the young. 53 years ago, Larry Gossett, a lot of you guys might know, former King County Council member and chairman, they did a sit-in there at Franklin High School because the principal told a girl that her hair wasn't straight enough. And, you know, as young men, Larry Gossett and Elmer Dixon and these guys, you know what I'm saying? You know, went to jail there at downtown. And actually, Larry Gossett is the only elected official to actually hold office in the exact same spot where his jail cell was, because the jail used to be on the top floor of the King County Courthouse. But a generation, 2 generations later, we're still doing sit-ins, and it's our young people. You see, our elders were once young too. And these fights that they fought, we're still fighting. You know, when you talk about the Office of Civil Rights that's there right now, that's because Black people got fed up of redlining and everything else. That came out of protest. And that's where the Office of Civil Rights came from. You know, Metro, everybody loves the Metro bus right now. And Metro, they weren't given any kind of north-south routes from the Central District. Every bus went downtown, and then you had to go and take another bus if you want to go north. And Metro refused to do the research. But just like people like organizations today, like King County Equity Now, a generation or two ago, the community did their own research and found that, yes, this route would work, and they forced Metro's arm. And that's how you got the route number 48, one of the longest routes in Seattle, comes right through the Central District. So I would say that as we look forward and talk about youth's role here today, we also need to look at, like, man, what is the reasoning? Some of the reasoning is that our elders who came before us in their prime and in their place, they got the job done. They moved the needle, and we took our foot off the gas. And we've now put ourselves where our young people are in another place now where they're carrying the load and they're putting the foot on the gas. And the lesson learned here is that, man, you know, America is a work in progress, but we'll only get progress if we work. And every time that we've seen some incremental change here, we've taken our foot off the gas. You know, we had whatchamacallit, affirmative action. We took our foot off the gas. Here goes I-200. And hopefully we'll see now with these laws that Inslee has passed down there in Olympia that, you know, implementation, are we going to keep our foot on the gas? So yes, it's important, because the fight for equality here in America continuously in our community has to be replenished by young people coming to the front line to push the cause. And that's why I just wanted to take a trip back down memory lane and really put it here today that, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, our young people are on the front line of a fight that our elders were fighting generations ago, like a Nani Kabibi and a Larry Gossett and the Dixons and everything else. So that's my perspective on it.
Absolutely. So true. And thank you so much for that, Omari. I know you have to go in media world, so we appreciate you being here. Thank you again for giving that great answer.
Thanks, everybody. And thank you for having me here. And like I said, I want to tell everybody in the audience, these are some very credible messengers that you have here. And please, you know, I mean, what they're saying is real, it's intentional, and I hope you take something away.
Absolutely. Thank you. You know, I want to be able to just kind of open this up a little bit too, because Imijah, you know, when you talk about being there in terms of education and what young people experience and how their voices often are muted in the education sphere, you know, it is important that they're centered, right? So that they are a part of these solutions that are going to be crafted for them. But I just want you to be able to speak to how, when you're talking about PTSA, working as a mother with kids in this school system, and how it kind of combines with with a lot of the ideas that they may have about solutions.
Thank you, Trey. I appreciate that. I want to say that this is lifetime work for all of us, but particularly for those from the African diaspora and Black folks. This is lifetime work. This is not something I did my part. I'm 21. I just want to live my life. Enjoy your life, but you're gonna keep doing this work. This is required of you. It's required. The ancestors have called you to do this, just like they worked hard for you. For me, it is required. Into our eldership, it is required. Until we pass from this place to the next, it is required. Just want to put that out there. I also just want to highlight the question. To me, Black people have always been carrying the burden, and we have always been leading in our advocacy, and we've always been leading in the change that has not only been improvements for us, but improvements for the community overall. So I just want to put that out there. And so this question to me, I think should be flipped. I want to know what non-Black people, white, indigenous, API, Latinx, I want to know what the young people and their elders are doing around this work that is combating and countering anti-Blackness, and that's getting in the way. That's what I want to know, because in this work, there are always some booby traps coming, right? We had the civil rights movement, some gets thrown in there. We get the Black Panthers type of era. You know, they come in to infiltrate. And when I say they, I'm talking about institutions. This is government. These are facts. This is in our history. They come in to infiltrate. The example of Tulsa, they came in to knock that down. And so again, we got to recoup, heal, get well. We got to get back out there and push. And we always do when it comes to this Black community. We always do, and we continue to lead the way. But who's getting in our way? That's non-Black people. Due to normalized anti-Blackness. Y'all are in the way. And in Black folks too, we got to deal with our internalized racial oppression and deal with our fear, because it's a real fear in our survival when somebody's coming to take your life if you get to learn how to read. Somebody's coming to take your life if you show too much of your brilliance. They want to move you out the way. And this is happening in the schools, and to the point when they're not educating us, or that's our only resource to learn about our brilliance, then we too don't know. And so what we are getting and gaining is we're modeling, our young people are modeling. This is a human rights issue, and our young people understand that. But we do have to acknowledge the other communities that are in the way in their own survival or in their own normalizing of anti-Blackness. And I just want to flip that question back. What are you doing to counter anti-Blackness? What are you doing to dismantle the systemic racism that's out there? What are you doing to really engage in a real authentic relationship to see the humanistic spirit of our children and of our community that you will quit trying to come get in the way? Why does your organization need to get paid to try to liberate us when you can't? And you know you can, because you ain't been doing it for generations. Why are you still going after that funding to try to do something off the backs and the sacrifices of Black folks? That's the question, because that's who's in our way. When we're talking to elected officials, when we're talking to school board members, there's people there, but there's a few and quiet voices because something's getting in the way. It ain't Black folks. We should not have to continue to keep carrying this. We're gonna do it, but we should not have to keep carrying it and then trying to explain to y'all, then trying to educate y'all at the exact same time while you smiling, trying to understand it, but you still got comfort. No, that's, So it's actually it's an unfair and it's an unjust burden to be placed on us. Again, we will continue to do the work, but y'all need to do the work. You need some education. You need a little bit of support of how to better do this and take some leadership. Happy to partner with you, happy to work with you. But in the meantime, if you're in the way, get out the way and figure out how that works for you, that you're also being able to walk in your dignity, because we're not asking you to be less than the human being that you are. What it's saying is that allow us to be our full selves and quit trying to strip us from environments and ecosystems that allow us to have our full potential, instead of keep looking at us like we're the problem. So I know that was a great question, but it's a question that it needs to be flipped to the folks who are in the way and oppressing. Thank you. Thank you, Trey, for the opportunity to speak.
Absolutely, Imajah. Oh, unapologetically pro-Black. Yes, absolutely. And everything you say. And I just want to wrap up for the panel here. Thank you to all of y'all for your time, your effort, honestly, for the work you're doing in community. I'm so glad that, you out there in this Seattle Colleges audience were able to take away something today. At the end of the day, that's what this is about. Because when we really have these collective ideas of how we come together towards solutions. And as Imajah said, really channeling yourself, challenging yourself to see what it is you're going to do to help move all of this work forward. So I just thank all of the panelists so much. You guys know how much I love and care for all of you. Nana Kabibi, thank you so much for showing up for, just not only New Black, but for our elders. You always come on point. Sean Good, appreciate everything you're doing, brother, and everything you said today and shared with us. Willard, appreciate your transparency and vulnerability and sharing your story and continuing to be a pillar in that work. And Miss Elishaba, thank you so much for being here and showcasing what we can do when we bring art and our cultural creativity into the spaces of ownership and what it really means to be there for community members in that way, showing them another way to do it. And with that, I want to let Mr. DeAndre Fisher give us a great close. Thank all of y'all so much. And Deepa, thank you for that question.
I think you closed this out, but I'll just say this. I want to thank you personally because, Trey, let me be completely honest. We came to you as an institution that is built on racism, built on systematic injustice, and you trusted us and gave us enough grace throughout this year to say, hey, I know what's going on, but what can we do as a higher ed institution of learning to truly take action? And I hope, because we're recording this and it's live stream, many of our college community that could not be here today will really watch this and hear from the dynamic elders and brilliance of the Black community right here in this space. I'm never amazed by the Black brilliance. I'm always in awe because I've always been around Black brilliance. But wow, let me tell you, this panel, wow, it is so good to hear and know that this is happening right here from somebody that's not from Seattle, and many of us that may be not from Seattle, to know that this is in our community, because this is my and our community now. So thank you, beloved Queen, as I call you in front of everybody, because it is that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Ashe, ashe, ashe. I also want to just take a moment, because I could not steward this work and be a steward of this work without thanking the EDI team at North Seattle College. This work is hard. This work is dangerous. It's a lot of resistance. So I want to thank all of the EDI family for all of the work that you all do to help support this work and making sure that we do what we have to do to keep the work going. We do have a few updates just really quickly, because we want to announce the marches and everything going on. So I'm gonna turn it over now to beloved Christy just to give a few updates around what's happening to continue to get involved within the district. And once again, it is an honor and a privilege just to be in a space with this kind of panel. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Christy?
Thank you, DeAndre. And you said it beautifully. I just want to echo everything you said. Thank you to the panelists. I feel so inspired and uplifted and just in awe. So thank you for coming and being with us today and sharing your wisdom and brilliance. And I'm here just to make some announcements about some upcoming events. So at South Seattle College, we'll have a Juneteenth event on June 10th from noon to 1 at South's Juneteenth Jubilee Jam. Seattle Central will have their Juneteenth celebration on June 9th, and we'll be honoring Professor Carl Livingston. North Seattle College will have a Juneteenth celebration program on June 19th from 11 to 1 p.m. We have some great community events that were mentioned. Juneteenth Freedom March and People's Assembly, that starts on 22nd and Madison at 1 p.m. on Juneteenth. We have our Afro-Latinos and Untaught History, and that film screening and conversation will happen in our affinity groups, and that's going to be on June 10th and 11th. We also have a Juneteenth event, the Black Fathers Matter March, happening in Tukwila on June 19th at noon. And then Willard's events that Willard mentioned are from the Regional Peacekeepers Collective will be happening in Skyway and Kent tomorrow, June 4th, in Skyway from 10 to 12 and in Kent from 2 to 4 p.m. And they'll be doing some education and giving away lockboxes and being in community with everyone. So thank you. Thank you all for coming and being here. And I look forward to seeing you all in community.
Thanks, everyone.